Okay, can everybody, are our mics working? Can you guys hear me? All righty. I'd like to bring to order our meeting this evening. You got about 3 seconds to sit down or not. Sorry that we were a little bit late, but we had a really good closed session. We'll get into that in a second. So we'd like to start our meeting. I still have a goal of 7 o'clock. We'll see if we hit it. We'll start with a roll call. Jen, you could do a roll call, please.
Rich Carnation.
Here.
Bill Adams.
Here.
Stephanie Ahmad.
Here.
Eric Heitz.
Here.
Malinali Lopez is absent. Student board member Jackson Caligari.
Here. Okay, great. Thank you. If we could go to 2-2, flag salute by Stephanie Ahmad.
All right. Everybody stand and face the flag. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Stephanie. 2.3, report out of closed session. We've got a couple things that we need to do. You want to, well, let me explain a little bit about why we were a little bit late. We had a safety discussion with our police chief and some other emergency services personnel in the town. It was a really good discussion, and it makes me feel even better to know the things that are in place, and yet we still are improving and got more things that we're going to be doing and putting in place. And now post-COVID, getting back to practicing and getting we're already good, and we're planning on being even better for our community. And that's about all I want to really say about that, is that we want everybody at home to know that we're aware of a lot of things, and we're trying to make sure that we're prepared for everything. And that was that. The other thing is we had a consideration of student expulsion, case number 100422, that we needed to take a look at. We need to actually have a motion and a second for the findings of fact.
I'll make the motion to accept the findings of fact.
I'll second.
Yeah, and I will, okay, and then on this particular
All in
case.
favor?
We need to vote.
Yeah, and I'm just going to explain. On this particular vote in this issue, Eric Heitz, he's recused himself. He's not part of the discussion, even though he's on the board right now on this part. Anyhow, so with that, we have a first by Stephanie, a second by Bill. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All righty, so it'd be 3-0-2. All righty, thank you. And then on the second, we are,
3011.
I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. On the expulsion hearing, the student has received a suspended expulsion order, and that will be taken care of with our assistant superintendent. We have a rehabilitation plan that's attached with that, and I'd like to have, I made a motion to accept that, and it was seconded by Bill Adams. And do we need to vote on it again here?
We do, yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that would be the same then. All righty, I've signed this, and that concludes that. All righty, thank you. Can you hand that to Jim, please? All righty, now, Jeremy, is there any other things that we need to report out of closed session?
No, that was it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All righty. 3.1, adjustments to the agenda. Are there any adjustments that need to be made or would like to be made? Okay. Jumping to 3.2, celebrating success, Forrest Harper, principal of North Bay Med Academy, will be presenting this item to the Board of Trustees.
Hello, everybody. All right, I have a PowerPoint if we want to bring it up. Well, we have some pretty cool stuff going on in Alt Ed, as we always do. It'll be up in just a minute.
Or somebody you do this before you jump into your PowerPoint. Just give another update on what big picture learning.
Sure.
What's our school represent?
So big picture learning is a philosophy that if you put children in charge of their own education, where they have actual choice, like real choice on what they want to study and how they study it through the advice of an advisor, they're going to naturally be more engaged and naturally want to study and want to do the things that the teachers tell them to do, as opposed to prescriptive curriculum that students just have to do just to get the grade. And so big picture learning really focuses on real world learning through authentic learning experiences. You'll see in the PowerPoint, we do a lot in the community, and students are also have internships that we call LTIs, learning through interests or learning through internships. And so at North Bay Med Academy, 2 days a week, students are at their LTI, learning a profession, learning a trade, learning about something that they're interested in. It doesn't have to be something that is going to be their lifelong career. It could be just something that they're casually interested in. And this is really that real world authentic learning that gets our students so prepared for post-high school success. When you look over the Youth Truth results, you'll see that students rate North Bay Med Academy and Windsor Oaks Academy the highest in the county for preparing them for after high school. And that's because we give them these authentic learning experiences as opposed to just worksheets. North Bay Med Academy started as big picture learning at Windsor Oaks Academy in 2015. And then 2017, the board voted to have it become its own school. So North Bay Med Academy kind of separated from Windsor Oaks Academy. It became its own school. So we're celebrating our 5 years of existence. And Windsor Oaks Academy just last year became a big picture learning school itself. So they're very different schools because one's a continuation high school, one's a school of choice, but they both do big picture learning kind of in different ways. And really what we do at Windsor Oaks is work on students getting caught up in their credits so that they can have an internship and go out and do the different things that North Bay Med Academy students can do. And here we go. Yes. Okay, so first we'll start off with Windsor Oaks Academy. So last year, Windsor Oaks Academy got a big grant and we spent it on a bunch of really fun stuff, laser cutters, 3D printers, and a lot of different technology, and students have been really utilizing that technology. In the right-hand side, there was a student who was doing some anatomy and they were able to do a 3D print of a skull and, you know, the brains, and so students were able to do that. On the left-hand side, you see a student who was using the laser cutter to make a moose for science class. And actually, I don't know, Sharon, if you can use the mouse and go over what's in the middle, that's actually a video of a student-made video game. So if you click on that, yep, there you go. There's no sound, so you don't have to worry about that. And so if you press play, this is a game that a student created at Windsor Oaks Academy. So if you, yeah, just click on the video. Yep. And then you can fast forward it a little bit, just kind of, oh, okay. But with the mouse, if you can go down to the bottom where, because this is like a 12-minute video, if you can just skip forward another minute, you can kind of see what the student is doing. So this is all created by the student through the Unreal Engine, and he got credit for this. And so he's, you know, working on his career. So you can see all around, this took a student about 2 days to do. And right now he's going into just some kind of shacks that's out in the farm side. But later on, yeah, if you want to go forward halfway through, you can see the castle in the background. Yeah, right there is good. And so all of this was created by the student. So this is a whole town, a whole castle, and you can see why students are.
What grade is the student in?
This student is a senior.
And they made this themselves.
Yep. So this is just a quick demo reel. That's good enough, Brad. So you just kind of get the idea of what the student created. And this is just cool projects that students can do. And this is something that this student can put on his resume. All right. Another thing we do, we like to do Leaving to Learns. That's the L2L. So if anyone's ever heard of the Earl Baum Center for the Blind, I haven't until this year. And this is something that Windsor Oaks Academy students went to and put on a lunch for everybody. So you can see our students at the top. They were making food, serving food for the students, and they were able to go around this center and learn about what it's like for people who are starting to lose their eyesight. And it was really fascinating going to this because, we got to go in and see a model house. And so they're preparing people for not only if they're blind, but if they're starting to lose their sight, they have a model house set up where they can say, this is where your knives go, and help train people who are, before they become blind, how they set everything up. So our students were able to do that and give back to the community. And, that is a really authentic learning experience. That's going to be an experience students remember much more than a worksheet or a drill. The wording got a little bit off in the PowerPoint, but that's the observatory at Sugarloaf State Park. So this was actually something done on a Saturday, and students were able to come out because there was a guest speaker, and students used this machine to be able to look at the sun. And so this is also Windsor Oaks Academy. These are continuation high school students showing up on a Saturday voluntarily to look at astronomy work because that is something that interests them. Okay, next slide. Oh, actually, I have the clicker. All right, now moving on to North Bay Med Academy. So this was the slide shared with the board last year. I think I came out in April, maybe early May, and these were the numbers that we had. So if you look at that very bottom number, we were projecting about 12. We were probably going to get some more freshmen. We were guesstimating about 80 students total enrollment, and we were guessing about 18 inter-district transfers, and these are our actual numbers. So you'll see that our number of freshmen have doubled since last year, which have gone up previously, which we haven't had any freshmen. Also, our enrollment went up one more than we were projecting, and so this is the third year in a row North Bay Med Academy has grown by 10%. And then you can see with our inter-district transfers, we have grown greatly with our inter-district transfers. That's because we're going out to these different schools and talking to them about North Bay Med Academy. Man, if I had a nickel every time somebody said, what do you do? I'm a principal at North Bay Med Academy. What's North Bay Med Academy? Which is why some people have shirts. So we're working on advertising. And so we've gone out to different schools to talk about North Bay Med Academy because it's such a great alternative. There are very few small high schools in this area, and not everybody is a UC or Cal State person. Some people want to go to a small liberal arts school. Some people want to go to an all-girls school. Some people want, a smaller school experience, and that's where North Bay Met really comes in. And so this year, we've really expanded who we've been talking to, and we're actually doubling the number of schools that we go see. So just on Monday, I presented at Sonoma Country Day School. Tomorrow, I am presenting at Mark West Charter. Next week, I'm presenting at Willowside and Village Charter, and then Forestville Academy and Spring Lake Middle School. I'm in the middle of speaking with, trying to get down dates. And so these are schools that are near our area that don't have necessarily a direct feeder. And we're saying, hey, if you like these small middle schools that you're attending, you might like a small high school. And so we're doing that, trying to get inter-district people to come to Windsor because this is a great school district.
Before you go on, you talked about 10% growth every year. What would you say is the elbow room capacity in that middle column for enrollment? How many students could you fit in there before we need to?
We have 5 classrooms, and we have 7 teachers in 5 classrooms. Capacity is going to run out soon. I think with our current setup, we can probably get to 90. 100 would be pushing it.
Let me protect Forrest a little bit here. So we have an unofficial policy. That's not a policy. We have put 18 students in each of those rooms. So I think when you're talking about capacity, it depends on how many students we're willing to put in those classrooms, if you will. So, I mean, yeah.
Just wanted to get a sense of that. We've never talked about that before because Eric and I remember when the first couple of dozen kids came over and we were rolling, and now we're going to be in triple digits soon. Okay.
All right. And so now, so that was kind of what Windsor Oaks is doing specifically, what North Bay Met is doing specifically. And since we're both big picture learning schools, we're doing some things together. One of the things is working on developing a competency-based assessment. So everyone's used to traditional assessments, which are pen, paper, essays, things like that. What we've been working on is a more competency based that really looks at students' abilities and skills and their motivation and their personal kind of work drive, and evaluating students on that, as opposed to how well do you do on this English test, how well do you do on this math test. And so this really creates opportunities for students to show off their skills that they have, and we can evaluate them based on that. And so we're measuring students not just in kind of what they know, but what they can do. So this is a rubric that was developed by Big Picture Learning Australia. And we actually had somebody come out from Australia and spend a whole day with us, working with us. And so we've adopted this from them. It's kind of a little bit backwards. It's Australia, so everything's, up and down. And so at the very bottom, you have the indicators. Usually that's kind of on top and you kind of go down, but you use the indicators at the bottom and work your way up. And this is what we are going to be assessing students this week and next week. This is something North Bay Met has been working on ever since Susan has been principal. So this has been years in the making of, we really like this idea of competency-based learning, competency-based assessment, but how can we do this? And luckily Big Picture Learning Australia did a lot of the work for us. And so we've been training and working on that. And what this idea is you sit down with this competency, knowing how to learn. So how do students know that they're learning? How do they learn? Another one we're also working on is personal qualities. And then at the next quarter, we're going to take on communication and quantitative reasoning. And then in the third quarter, we'll have the 6 competencies, which is qualitative reasoning and social reasoning. And so what this does is advisors sit down with their student and evaluate the student on how they are in these various areas. So if you look at the bottom, with the third column over, engages with experts. So does the student identify experts in their area of interest? If they're able to do that, then they're just at the bottom. They can just talk about or know who the experts are. If they don't know that, it's not yet evident. And the idea is over time, over growth, the more we have with the student, they're getting better and better at that competency, where if they go all the way up to a 5, they're co-creating new knowledge with experts, which does not sound great. Also, it's, what about the levels of questions that students ask? Oftentimes we just say, how well can the student answer the question? But how rich and deep of a question can a student pose? Isn't that more important than so many things that we learn in school? And if we're looking at this at the very bottom, just generating questions for their area of interest is the baseline. And then as you work your way up, you're developing high order questions, and then you're formulating new lines of inquiry. And so this is the idea that when students come in freshman year, most likely freshmen are going to hit all 1s and 2s. And the more we work with them and the more we bring up this competency and more we work with their projects, the idea is by senior year, they're going to be hitting 4s and 5s. So this is a Big Picture Learning international credential that International Big Picture has created. These different flower petals that you see there are the different 6 competencies. And you see, I know it's kind of hard to see, but there's little rings around the flower. So those flower petals is students hitting 5s in all the different competency areas. So an actual, that would be, an A+ student. An actual student, you might have a 5 in one area, a couple 4s in another area, maybe a couple 3s. But all of these are hyperlinks. And so this is an alternative way to show your transcript. And so that bottom left box, that is a live link to a digital portfolio that a student creates. And then people are able to put their work on this credential, so that way when they're going to apply to jobs, they can show students they can show people what the work that they made. We had one student, Boston Rohan, who just graduated with us, and he was in our independent study was Shannon Johnson, and he made websites. And right out of high school, within a month of graduating high school, he got a really good job working for a church, being a web designer. And he showed at his job interview the different websites he made for projects at North Bay Met Academy that got him that job. Fundraising is something else that we've been really focusing on. Big Bang in the top right-hand corner is the big international training, professional development that happens every year. The last time we sent people was 4 years ago. We have a lot of new staff, and people are itching to get back to Big Bang. It's not super cheap, and so we've been fundraising. We've done our first Dine and Donate. We actually got another $2,500 donated to us, and we have these really cool shirts. So the board members got a shirt gratis, and there's a Windsor Oaks Academy shirt and a North Bay Met Academy shirt. The Windsor Oaks Academy shirt, that oak tree was drawn by an Oaks student. So it's pretty cool. And so we're selling those shirts, and then we're also giving them away because we want to, advertise more for the schools and also promote positive school culture. So more leaving to learns that we've done. We love going outside of school. We often joke we're the school at school the least. Just yesterday, we went up to Ukiah and did a big picture learning collaborative day. So since North Bay Met Academy has been created, there's been 4 new big picture learning schools in this area: Cloverdale, Healdsburg, Fort Bragg, and Ukiah. And so we've been kind of collaborating more because there are other big picture schools in this area. So the bottom middle and the bottom left, that was us yesterday at South Valley High School, just spending some time together, doing different stations, having fun. At the top middle, that was Redcom. So that's the organization that deals with 911 calls. And so it was really interesting because students got to sit in on 911 operators and got to hear actual live 911 calls and see what that's like. Top right was an apple orchard, and then bottom right is the Healdsburg Farmers Market. Yes, Eric.
I'll kind of do a little expanding on some of your information there. Bill mentioned earlier, I think it was 2015 that he and I first got involved and went to Sacramento to see big picture learning in action. And there's an Oakland version of that as well. We were here at Windsor, the first in the North Bay to make that happen, to get a school established. And since then, all these other you're mentioning, Hillsburg, Cloverdale, Ukiah, Fort Bragg, they've all come to visit us to see how well it's going and then said, wow, we need to do this also. So we're kind of the tip of the spear, I guess you could say, or the trend-setting version of this. They're much smaller than we are now. Hopefully they can grow as well. But our efforts in the last 6 or 7 years have really shown shown positivity toward this new development program throughout the North Bay and the North counties.
That's right. We're the OG big picture learning school in the area. So don't go to mattresses with us. Next week, tomorrow we're going to a beehive. Next week, we're going to a pet hospital. Just today, a new Leaving to Learn came through. We're going to go to San Francisco for a native film festival on November 7th. So just really cool opportunities. And these are the things that kids care about, that they remember. You remember the field trips. You don't remember the lectures. And speaking of lectures, we have a lot of guest speakers that come to our school. And so you can see these are just the guest speakers that we've had in the quarter that we've been in school. And so we've had a lot of different people come out. It's really fascinating, really interesting. And a lot of these lead to learning through interests. And so students will hear somebody talk and say, hey, maybe I'll be interested in that. Then they take them on as a mentor, and that could be a possible profession that person gets into. Or maybe they do it and they say, it's not for me. I actually didn't like that, what an amazing thing to learn that in high school, that you don't want to go down that profession. And then you can pivot before you've already paid thousands of dollars in education to get trained in that area. And that is it. I want to end a little bit on the highlights. So some of these pictures are students at their LTIs. So we have Jude up at the top at Hansel Car Dealership. Adrian right next to him is at Maddie Washburn. We have students who work with horses, works with cars. Jeremiah at the bottom left, who's running our Writing for Focus class. Those bottom middle, bottom right are different kick-ins and activities that we've done. Countryside Rescue up in the top right. And a couple I want to actually highlight is right to the right of the big picture logo is Macias, our student advisor, getting a haircut. That was our guest speaker, Alejandro the barber. And Alejandro is a big picture learning alumni. And to the right of him is Diego, who owns the Pizza Guys here in town in Windsor. And he actually had his LTI at North Bay Med Academy at Pizza Guys because he was interested in learning about culinary. And the guy who owned Pizza Guys loved him so much that he gave him the franchise. And then the problem is he was too young. I guess Pizza Guys International or corporate says you have to be 21 to be an owner. So they had to write a letter together saying he's mature enough, and he got his own franchise at the age of 19. And so we had a pizza party the first week of school, and he said, "Oh, I'm happy to give back to my school." And he gave us, I think, 19 cheese pizzas. And so this is what's really cool now that we're getting into time at North Bay Med Academy is we're seeing alumni come back to us to give back to our school that helped them so much in their career. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can clap. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Thanks, Forrest. Members, any comments or things that you'd like to? Oh, actually, you know what? Or do we need to go to public comment on this first?
We could go to public comment. This is just, no, not really.
Celebrate success with
Yeah.
you too, but-
Oh, we don't need. Okay.
So I want to compliment you on the growth of the program and freshmen coming in, and then publicly say that we are looking to, this started as an outgrowth of alt ed, alternative education, and it now is an alternative to comprehensive high school, not folks that maybe didn't have other options. It's now there are comprehensive students who are doing well and okay and want to come over there, which is wonderful. And we're looking forward to continuing to expand the grade range. There is the opportunity to push this down, as I understand it, into the secondary and primary grades. And so look forward to working with you on that. This has been very, very exciting. I'd love it if you could connect us to that link that you had with the flower petal and that came from Big Picture Australia. Just to keep up the good work. Thank you very much, and to all your students and your staff. Thank you.
I'm very proud of the program. It's something that we've been passionate about here on the board for a very long time. Another option for us to give students that might not otherwise succeed. And they're doing well. Most of them all are flourishing and shining. We loved seeing that. Another little aspect, just my own personal thing. I'm an athletics guy, and we do have a joint program where those students can then play on sports at Windsor High School. So if somebody's saying, well, yeah, but it's a small little school, how could I play football? Or I can't do volleyball if I'm at that little tiny school with 80 kids. Yes, they can. They can be part of our traditional program at the high school. And so that's an option as well. So thank you.
I'll go, I guess. You're doing a great job. I think everyone's comments kind of captured how excited we are about this program and how great of a job we think you're doing building it. Looking forward to seeing where it goes. I mean, I think from my perspective, I feel like all of our students have the potential to be successful in some way, and we just have to build the programs to help develop that success. And I feel like this is a critical piece of developing our students who, where this is the type of program where that helps them become successful. So thanks for being a part of that, such a big part of it.
Forrest, as I've told you before, I think you do an amazing job, your staff as well. But there was one slide that it triggered a thought in my mind. My grandson, was a fourth grader, he came home, we were talking, and he said, "I'm going to be a cop." And I go, "You are?" And he goes, "Yeah, I'm going to practice arresting you, Grandpa." And I'm going, "Really?" And we started talking, go, "Well, what made you think you want to be a police officer?" And he goes, "Well, a police officer came to our class and he was talking about all the cool things they do and blah, 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 right?" So he wanted to be a cop. And then about a month later, then he says he wants to do something different. And I go, "Well, what makes you think of that?" And he goes, "Well, this person came to our class and blah, blah, blah." And so when I'm watching and you just had a display of all these different things, the thought went in my mind, we need to do more of this in all of our classes. And the reason why is because nobody likes to work for just work's sake. We work for a purpose. Our students are the same way. Why are they learning? They're learning for a purpose. And if some of them don't have a purpose or they don't know why they're doing the things they're doing, if we could expand and maybe whatever job we're doing now, do even more in all of our different classes by exposing our kids to all variety of different types of opportunities and work and professions and stuff like that, it might get our kids dreaming and thinking even more about what opportunities they have and they might, who knows what they're going to want to do. But it might encourage them to say, now I'm studying with a purpose because I want to be this. I want to be like that person, whatever. And it was the thing that you're doing that I was going, oh, wow, we need to duplicate that even more so. So to the degree that you're doing that, I've had a lot of the kids that I've talked to. I don't know why. I really like the North Bay Met system for a lot of the kids. And I think it's a really good program. I'm glad that we're involved with it. And I think you guys are doing an awesome job. And I think that we can actually learn from you guys and implement a lot of things, the successes that you guys are doing, implement them across our district. And so I hope that, you're willing to share with the other administrators as well, things that you guys are doing, having great success with, that we can duplicate in our other campuses as well. But thank you very much. I think it's awesome. Jackson.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll say something really quickly. I did just yesterday, actually, I attended a leadership conference with a lot of our leadership program at the high school. And one of the big emphases they put on at that program was how do we encourage just a path postgraduate of high school, whether that's education or the military or just, having a job. And I'm just glad we're doing as much as we can to give people other paths to just a path at all postgraduate, so they're not lost when they step out of high school. We want them to have something to do. So I'm glad that we're doing something to encourage that.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for it.
Thanks for the shirts.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okie dokie. Now going to 3.3, if we have any public comment that anybody would like to make that's not on the agenda. I see we have one, so since we haven't, let me read this. Any person may address the board on any consent item, action item, or item not listed on the agenda. Pursuant to the Brown Act, during this period, the board is not allowed to consider issues or take action on the item not listed on the agenda. We ask that the public comment be spoken to the microphone for the podium in accordance with BP 9323. Individual speakers shall be allowed 3 minutes to address the board in each agenda item or non-agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public input to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and the number of persons to be held. And with that said, we will go out to public comment.
Hi, my name is David Kahn. I know most of you don't know who I am. But first I wanted to thank him for having the Navy come to speak to his class and not the Marines. All right. The reason I'm here is you knew I was here for 21 years running the snack bars. And after I left, I got called from Newman to go down there and run theirs. And I was all ready to do it. And then I thought more about it and I passed. And but the reason I'm here for tonight is I was in the gym a couple weeks ago, and I think it is absolutely gorgeous what has been done to that gym, the new floors and everything. And it took 21 years to get rid of that cat off the floor. And it really looks good. But there was one thing that bothered me, or a couple things. Number one, there's a camera sits behind the team so that the people can watch the game at home if they pay for it. And Jeremy, my son, who just passed away, said, Dad, that camera's in the wrong spot. It can't be there. It has to face the scorer's table, the teams, the announcer. That's on the wrong side. So I went to Jamie and mentioned that to her, and she says, well, what does he know about basketball? Well, let's put it this way. My son worked the scorer's table at the Warriors for 19 years. Here is his college NCAA championship ring from Cal State Northridge when they won the championship in a Big Sky. So he knows something about it. But that's not the only thing that's wrong. The W on the floor is facing the wrong way. It is facing our team and the scorer's table and the camera. So if you sit on the side where the Windsor spectators are supposed to sit, they don't know if they're at Maria Carrillo or Montgomery. And it is really terrible. And Jamie says, no, big deal. And the other person said to me, or we were talking with people at the airport club, they were saying, these were referees, the company who did it, put the W down, had to know that they were putting it down wrong. And it's really upsetting to me and to a few other people that are still coming to games. I haven't been to any games yet. I might come down to see us play Newman. But congratulations to our volleyball team, because it looks like they're going to win championship. And congratulations to our football team, because DJ is doing a tremendous job, what I read in the paper. But thank you for listening to me. And I will see you all soon. Have a good evening.
Great. Thanks, David. Anybody else from the public that would like to speak on non-agendized items? Okie dokie. I will bring it back to the board. We will go to 3.4, report from student board member Jackson. You're getting to be awful familiar here, Jackson.
Yeah,
Once you have the clicker, you think you have control, huh?
We'll see. Yeah, so I do have a PowerPoint that accompanies this, but my larger presentation, which isn't particularly large, is on the canned food and toy drive that we do every year with other organizations in the town. That's not coming up for a while, but I did want to speak on it because we're starting to talk about it, and I'm trying to focus on events that the community can get involved in as well, or things that involve more than just the schools. But a couple other things that I wanted to mention while we're pulling it up is they mentioned it earlier. Our volleyball team did secure the first place in the division for NBL Oak, and they have their last game, their senior night against Newman tonight. And if they win that, they'll be undefeated in league. So, congratulations to them. And along with that, I did mention earlier, I went to a leadership conference yesterday with the leadership program. I'll probably actually speak about that in a larger sense next week or next meeting, because that was a really, really good experience. And Windsor showed up really well there. And the photos are really, really good, which is something I'm always looking for the presentations. But we do have the community toy and food giveaway coming up for the next couple of months. We try and center it around Thanksgiving and Christmas. The week that the high school specifically will be running it is December 2nd through December 9th. Exactly how we're doing this is kind of still up in the planning committee. Last year, we ran it through clubs, which we got a lot of donations through, and classes, which was less successful than it's been in the past. In the past, we've done core competitions where every core's tried to raise, as many cans as they could, and then the winning core would get a prize. This year, since we're switching to a more hybrid program where not every student is in a core, we moved it to, every class should try and get the most amount of toys and cans that they can, and that class wins a prize. But people are less inclined, I think, to donate to a random teacher as much as they would like their whole core community. So I might suggest that the leadership program moves back to that, and then maybe hybrid gets their own category that they can donate to. But we're just looking to maximize donations. In the past, right before COVID, it was really, really successful. And, it was my first year doing it last year. I thought we did well. Apparently, Ms. Whiteley does not think so as much. Apparently, we could have done a lot better. So we'll try and get back to that. Which is kind of just what I said here. Right before COVID, I couldn't quite get a number out of her, but we did much better than we have. But coming off of COVID, everything's very tough. And the way that we ran it was different than we have in previous years. And now we're just looking into how can we do the most that we can as a school. But of course, it is a community event, so we're not the only source of food and toys. But if you do want to donate through the school rather than other programs, I know they accept donations at fire stations a lot. But if you want to donate to the school directly, December 2nd is probably going to be the main time for the community to donate. It's also our big Winter Wonderland event, which is a new thing this year. So that'll be a big event for the kids, but also it's an opportunity to come drive through. We're trying to get our clubs and teams to decorate trees like they do at it's town greens that way. Like they do at the town green. We're in the process of getting those. The town doesn't want us to step on their toes, which is why we're trying to do it just for one night. But we're trying to give people something to come by for. And in case you didn't want to donate, just out of the goodness of your heart, we will give you a candy cane and some hot chocolate. So that should really incentivize you. But that's about it for this event. I might have an update on it next month as we get closer to it. But this is an event that I'm really hoping we do more than we have last year and even years before that. So I want to get a jump on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson. All righty, any questions or comments for anybody? All righty, moving on to 3.5 Superintendent's Report. Jeremy, got anything for us? I didn't know that.
So, update on the facilities master plan. A number of you guys were just there, but since our last. Thanks, Austin. We've had 2 facilities master plan committee meetings. And at our last one, we really got down to which projects we're looking at, which ones are a priority, and ultimately which projects will end up in our plan. So everybody got some monopoly money. They only had a certain budget, got put into groups, and had to decide what was most important to them as the board in that group. We have one more committee meeting, which will happen probably within the month. And then after that, the actual document will be coming to the board for approval. And so we're hoping to have our facilities master plan completed for our spring to do a lot of our vision work with what we want for our campuses. You stole my thunder, Jackson. I was going to talk about volleyball, but I will say this will be, if we win tonight, first time we've been undefeated since I believe 2016. No, first time ever undefeated. First time winning league since I think 2016. And I had one more thing on my list that I can't find right now. So
Maybe I could help you.
let's see it.
Something was, I don't even know if you can do this, because people were talking about the logo on the different logo on the floor in the
There it
gym.
is. Yes.
So basically the word I have is you're welcome, because I've had to look at that ugly thing for so long. So I'm glad that that's changed. And the way that people know that it's Windsor, not the other schools, is we're winning. So
I do have I have found my document.
there, I was
So,
just helping you out.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Reg. We had a great day at PD on Friday. A lot of it was centered around how to use data effectively to inform our instruction, and RenStar, which is a new, I won't say it's a new program, but it's a new assessment tool that we've adopted this year. And each site did some other things, but that was the universal theme throughout pretty much every site. Forrest talked about North Bay Met. They are one of the campuses that is not using RenStar. He talked about what they're doing, and we're piloting that in place of Renaissance Star. We call it RenStar. It's just a program. It's been around a long time.
And if I may, anybody that's not watching, PD is professional development for all staff.
Yes, sir.
All teachers were here, no students, hard work by the staff.
You got it. And the last thing, we play Cardinal Newman November 4th, final home game for football. So if you could be there, be there. Thanks, guys. That was my update.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any questions from anybody? Any public comment? All righty. Moving on to 3.6, Staff Association reports. Any reports? Okay. How about our other esteemed staff member? Nothing? Okay. All righty. Very good. Thanks. Moving on to 3.7 then, Board of Trustees, anything to report on that superintendent? See, everybody wanted to say how great we were doing, and then everybody jumped to get it and be the first one to say it. So the next time we'll have to move the Board of Trustees report to the front so we don't get squished on. But any other comments? All righty. 3.8, approval of minutes from August 30th. Can I have a motion?
I'll move.
All righty, a second.
I'll make the second motion.
All righty, all those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, Jen, so that's 4-0 and 1-1. All right, very good. All righty, and now we will move on to our consent items, and Vice President Adams, if you can take those. that'd be
I would
great.
make a motion that the board consider and approve consent action items as listed, numbers 4.1 to 4.14. I'm not aware of any recusals. I would, just for those playing at home, perhaps Pete, if you could briefly discuss that community relations policy under 414 and how it came up and what it will add from our facilities master plan consultants. That is the only question or comment that I had about this. I think it'd be helpful to have people be aware of that. And I would look for a second before he.
I'll make a second
Yeah.
on that.
We on? Good.
Yep.
Hi. Yeah, so this is just a byproduct of the federal program monitoring process that we recently went through. And so when the auditors came through, they weren't satisfied with either our board policy as it related to, specifically related to our UCP. And they also didn't care for our UCP sheet that people would utilize in order to formulate a complaint.
So, and our UCP is?
Oh, I'm sorry, Universal Complaint
Okay, thank you.
Procedure.
Yep.
So I went through a number of scenarios with Jennifer Flory, who is our representative at SCO, and she said, if you just want this to pass, the best thing you can do is utilize the edits that she had given me, which are largely just minor tweaks here and there in the language. They haven't changed anything specifically other than, we move words here and there. It all equates to the same thing. They've specified it and clarified our language in a section as opposed to having it spread out in a paragraph. So it was formatting largely. And so I've done that. I took all of her edits. I added it to a new clean sheet. I've put them both together so you could see them. And then we adopted, or I'm proposing that we adopt the state's version of the complaint form. So when the public facing document that we will use from now on our website will be the one, I can't remember which side it's on, but one of those two documents. And I think ours is cleaner, but this one is going to allow us to pass the next, hopefully, federal program monitoring process.
And I wanted to thank you because it struck me that this, as it says, community relations is also founded on accessibility and transparency, and the uniform complaint procedures are not what we really like very much, but it's a way for people, if they have concerns, they can get them to us and get them addressed. That's the point that I wanted to reinforce. And so thank you for that. I think that's an important evolution.
Yep. You bet.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I just want to make a comment on 4.1, on the personal assignment. One of the blessings of being involved with the school district for so many years in coaching was that, well, obviously being associated with all the kids. But on top of that, you also notice that there are certain, I always like to look at things as good, better, and best. Well, we were pretty good when we started. And in one area with the coaches' stipends, we went from good to not so good to we weren't doing great at all, only because we just never did anything for 25 years. It was something that always bothered me, that we were having championship programs up here in Windsor, and the coaches were getting compensated less than a junior high 5-week season coach and somewhere else. And I just thought that there was an incongruency with our values and the extra time that we were spending with our kids. And not that anybody coaches for money, but it's kind of just of whatever. So anyhow, that was one of the things that I noticed, that there was incongruency. The other was that in my 25 years of coaching, we were so blessed with having outstanding athletic directors, just somewhere between really good and just the best of the best. And one of the best of the best we have right now is Jamie Williams. And I always thought, I didn't even think it. I knew it. The amount of work that our athletic directors were putting in was way, way, way beyond any sort of compensating amount of hours, time, this, that, and the rest. And so I knew that we needed to have a full-time athletic director. One of our strategies for our budgets and doing different things is to attract students from Windsor to stay here and from all the other wonderful stars outside of our area to want to be part of our Jaguar district as well. And to do that, it takes an incredible amount of time. Every year, one more little straw got added to the duties that athletic directors had to do. And it's a thankless job. And it's one of those jobs where when they do one little thing wrong or they miss one little thing, everyone goes like, wow, why are you not doing that? And the whole sky is falling and everything else. So it's never thank you, man, you're doing an awesome job. Thanks for checking on my kid and making sure they're doing great. It's why didn't you do this? So anyhow, it's more than a full-time job all by itself, especially if you do a really good job at it. And we have had just excellent people. Jamie's doing an awesome job, and I'm really thankful to see that we've been able to manage our budgets and do things and run things in such a way that we're actually able to now fulfill our commitments to making sure that a person has the time, or at least more so, I see Jen over there nodding her head. I was an AD too, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But anyhow, I'm glad that we've been able to make that so that way the AD now is a full-time position, and we're doing really, really well. And I thank everybody that's worked really hard to make that happen. And I'm glad that our district is taking one more step into making sure that people are taken care of for the things that they do. And even then, I know most everybody still gives more than what they get, but that's part of the joy of being in education. And just want to thank everybody involved to make that happen. So that way our people are appreciated and their hard work is compensated as well.
We have to vote to make that happen.
Before we do, if I may, I just want to add to this celebration, Christine Behrens, who is the AD over at Cali. And I've been texting with her. I know I'm not supposed to in the meetings, but it's exciting over there because our Eagles, Aguilas. Thank you. The 8th grade girls just won their league this evening. So congratulations to them and well done on AD.
Recruiting. Good job.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, girls basketball. So
Thank you.
well
Tell
done.
her- Yeah, if you can text her back and say that we're all very excited and we congratulate her success
Muy bueno.
On it.
and their success.
Great. Thanks, everybody. All right. It looks like we're ready for a vote.
I thought for a second, Trustee Stephanie was going to break into the Kelly fight song or something, or maybe Ferrer. I don't know who was going to
It
do
would be in
but
Spanish. So
good. I could. All right. Yeah. Okay. Let's vote.
All righty. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Student trustee?
Aye.
There we go. Right, got it all. Thank you all very much. All righty, now we're moving on to 5.1, reports and discussions, special education report, information on Windsor Unified School District, special education programs, and this will be presented by Deborah Ryan, our Director of Special Education.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on the special education happenings. And I'm going to follow the same format that I gave last year so we can apples to apples. All information is based on October 4th counts, which is it's called Census Day for special education. There's a snapshot every year, and that's what our special education funding will be based on. As of October 4th of this year, our total district enrollment was 4,673 students. Of those students, 755 students were categorized as special needs and are on an IEP, which makes up 16.2% of our total population of students. I then took that number of the 755 students, and this slide shows you how they are distributed throughout our district. Our high school, being our most populated school, houses 29% of our special education students. Middle school has 129 and Cali 113. So our largest population of schools does have our largest number of special education students. Okay. This slide shows you, it breaks down each school and demonstrates the percentage of special needs at every school. Bridges NCC is our collaboration with other school districts to service our students with higher needs. So of course they're 100%. With our largest percentage of population, again, taking out Windsor Oaks and North Bay, which does attract alternative learners, we do see the distribution of students. I also like, when I'm looking at needs, I like to look at the growth history of the district. And the numbers stayed for overall student enrollment as well as special ed enrollment. It stayed pretty consistent from last year. The next slide, this says school growth history, but it's actually special education growth history. If you will note, we see a big drop of 72 less eligible students at the middle school from last year. There were a total of 60 students that progressed on to high school, but only 39 that came from Brooks into the middle school. Another possible contributor to that huge drop of students was during COVID, there was a hold on in-person student evaluations. And so we should see that number start to stabilize again in 1 to 2 years, since evaluations, most of those evaluations take place at Brooks. As reported last year, I got notification last September that our district was in targeted improvement, California Department of Ed monitoring. Windsor's been identified for target improvement in several areas for special education. We've been placed at what's called intensive monitoring. Determination was based on 3 consecutive years of data. However, it was paused during COVID. So I've listed the years that the data that was used to put it into monitoring. So school years 2017, 2018, 2018-19, and 2019-20. In December of 2020, a special education plan was submitted to the California Department of Education. However, implementation was again paused because of COVID. And I was notified also last year in September that although there was a special education plan submitted in December of 2020, I was asked to revise and redo so that it more centered on root causes of specifically special education, and our action item steps were aligned to those root causes. Okay. Again, data was collected for school years 18, 19, and 20. Our district has been identified for targeted improvement in 12 indicators that measure special education success. These are the 12 indicators that we're being monitored on. If you'll notice, the second to last bullet is highlighted. And this is disproportionality in placements, and this is placement in separate schools. Because of 3 consecutive years that the district has placed students, predominantly white students, in non-public schools, we've been identified for a higher level of monitoring for that specific indicator, and that is called significant disproportionality. Because of this identification, it also requires our district to set aside 15% of our federal funds, our IDEA funds, and apply them to what is called a comprehensive coordinated early intervention service plan. And those funds are to be used as pre-intervention plans, so interventions done before special education. And our plan will specifically target our disproportionality of students that we have placed in non-public school, being white students. So that's all the data based on where I've been targeting our strategy. So what's coming next? I've laid out a 3-year plan, and we started this year. I won't go through all the items, but it breaks down where our initiatives are going to be each year, and we'll address each of those targeted monitoring items. Additional supporting rationale for the areas that I identified, aside from the items identified for monitoring in CDE, is the district partnered with Able Choice in July of 2021 and completed a special education study. That study also identified that at the time the study was done in July of 2021, the district was at a 15.5 special education percentage rate. Please keep in mind that we are 1% higher at this point, and versus a state average of 12.4% percentage of special education. The study noted also addressed the need for a consistent district-wide system of supports that addressed student needs before there was ever a consideration for special education. And so we're going to start to focus on getting those gen ed interventions in place. The report, additionally, the study aligned with the state's findings that we were over-identification of students for speech language impairments and also specific learning disabilities, as well of overplacement of students in non-public schools. It also showed a need for reduction in the district's fund contribution to special education. One example of a cost that is very high for our district is the overassignment of one-to-one paraprofessionals for students with special needs. In July of last year, the initial count of one-to-one paraprofessionals when we started last school year was 31. Currently and appropriately, we're down to 19. And I'll get into the future slides of why it was appropriate. The financial implications of our district are shown in this chart. Something to note is that the majority of contributing funds came from our district's own unrestricted funds. Federal and state funds contribute less than 40% on average for our students with special needs. Special education services for this last school year made up 19.83% of our entire district's budget. These are the initiatives that we're going to be concentrating on this school year. Identifying students for co-teaching models, so students who are able to access the gen ed curriculum and core content instruction in the gen ed environment with appropriate services. We've developed co-teaching partners, and we've started that already. So we have special education teachers partnering with gen ed teachers in the general education classroom, so that the students get the core content instruction from our highly qualified gen ed teachers. And then we're partnering that with a special education teacher's knowledge of how to accommodate instruction during real-time instruction. We're building a full continuum of services for our students. A lot of the processes that are being implemented for special education, we're starting to align them with the pre-referral processes that we're starting to create and implement. So your SST process, your multi-tiered supports. We continue to do internal audits of eligibility criteria. So we're making sure that every school and every school psychologist is using the same established criteria, whether it's performance-based criteria or discrepancy model, they're all using the same model. We're developing in-district programs so that we can work on minimizing the need to send students outside of our district. Something I'm proud of is we've started a behavior support program at our Brooks campus where we saw a lot of students coming back from COVID that were struggling a bit, so we're able to keep students at school. Development, PD and accommodated instruction. So we're raising the bar on our special ed teachers and building up their knowledge on how to do it so that they can turn around and share that knowledge and demonstrate it to our gen ed teachers. We're building parent-community partnerships. I've had the opportunity to have 2 parent forums. I would like to say I'm going to do a whole bunch of them, but there's time restraints, but I will continue to grow that. IEP advancement. This is a passion of mine, and it's going to sound silly, but everything we do is listed on a student's IEP. And if anyone who comes in the door should be able to look at that IEP and know exactly what a student needs. We're working on expanding and getting greater detail in our students and truly demonstrating that we can place them anywhere throughout the day. It doesn't have to be in this setting or that setting. So we're expanding that, and we're giving a very clear picture and a compliant picture in our IEP process. And the biggest thing of all is we're making sure our students with special needs are getting that grade level content rather than ability level content. Some required actions that we have to do were outlined in our action plan towards the items that have been identified for monitoring. The biggest thing is that significant disproportionality. So we're really looking at the data about why we see a significantly higher amount of our non-public school students placed are predominantly white. So we're drilling down to that as well. We're going to, by giving students access to grade level content, we'll see those math and EL achievement scores rise for our students with disabilities. And the biggest push that we're doing is that development of full continuum. So I want to get into that second to last bullet as my last informational item for you is the development of a full continuum and what that actually is. Previously, our district implemented a model that was a full inclusion model. So basically, students, regardless of their ability level or their needs, were placed in a gen ed classroom, sometimes with a one-to-one, usually with a one-to-one, regardless of whether or not they could access the content being taught in the classroom. We're moving to inclusive practices, which utilizes every type of setting and services that are available on a campus so that at any given time, a student's going to get exactly what they need in a setting that is most beneficial to them, and also taking into consideration the impact of the learning environment for other students as well. Some pros and cons of full inclusion. Our previous model is the pros were, of course, that our students got exposure to non-disabled peers. You see a decrease in antisocial behaviors if they're around same-age peer models. And it also builds up a respect for diversity to have all of our students visible and interacting with each other, so there's not a sense of a difference. A con of full inclusion is oftentimes when we place students uniformly with higher needs in a gen ed classroom, is the content is oftentimes above their ability level. Also, you sometimes find that one-to-one pairs are the ones giving the instruction, and we need to leave that to our highly qualified teachers. Pairs are a supplemental support, so they're there for kids who can access the grade level content and assist them with accommodations, but the core content instruction needs to come from your certified teachers. And then it's a cookie cutter model, and we all know that every student's different and one size does not fit all. So pros of inclusive practices is that students have access to the gen ed curriculum at the same pace and rigor that's happening in the gen ed classroom so that they can easily move out of special education and keep pace with their non-disabled peers. To the greatest extent possible, they are with their gen ed peers. We will not see one student in a special education classroom all day. They will be with their peers at some point of their day to the greatest extent possible. They're with age level and grade level peers, so they're getting peer modeling to see what that looks like. They're building stronger social skills because they're learning how to communicate in a livable environment. And we often see less classroom behaviors because oftentimes we see peers engaging in helpful activities with students with disabilities. What's difficult about full inclusion is finding an effective combination of services, finding time for gen ed and special ed teachers and staff to collaborate and talk about what each of their students need. Um, when you're implementing inclusive practices, new in a school environment and in a community, oftentimes it's met with resistance and non-acceptance of diversity, and a lack of appropriate training. It's easy for us to tell a teacher you need to do this, but we need to show them how to do it and support them when they're first trying to do it. So those are some of the cons. So creating a full continuum, it basically, in a nutshell, means that each student has what they need at any given time of their day to be a successful learner. So all students get what they need when they need it. I'm very much a visual learner. So this slide just kind of gives you a visual of what it looks like. If you look at the full continuum of services, we always start first with a student in a general education classroom. And we know that students' needs vary to the point where some students even end up at a residential school. So our traditional services for special education have been resource or a self-contained classroom. SDC is the model, all the way up to a special day school, which is a non-public school. We're going to be utilizing the entire gamut in between. So if you have a student who has special needs, to the greatest extent possible, we're going to look on how we can keep them in that gen ed room and still give them the services that they need, but keep them in that core content instruction. They might need to go out for part of a period for reinforcement instead of a whole period for just special education services. So the further you go on that continuum is more restrictive. So you're going to see a combination. We've also started that our students that are in our SDC or self-contained classes, they're pushing into gen ed. We also have them pushing into resource because the pace and rigor is a little bit higher. For our students who might have one period where academically they're just super struggling in a course, they might even float into our SDC classes. We're making sure that our NCC students are not distinguished as a separate entity, that they are part of our community, and in the majority of those students are our students, Windsor students. So they are enveloped in this full continuum as well. So just to sum up, looking ahead, we're building that continuum of services. We're working on our collaboration with gen ed and special education staff. We're providing professional development that builds the skill base of our providers and building on that inclusive practices. We're making sure our students have access to grade level content regardless of ability level. We're looking at whole child, so we're not just looking at academics, we're looking at social, emotional, behavior, doing a really hard push on sensory integration, and looking at all aspects of the child for their needs. And then as we build those SST, EL, and 504 processes, as well as MTSS, we're going to make sure that it aligns to what we need to see before a student is considered for special education. It's a lot. Any questions?
I'll make mention if you don't mind. So you're new to this leadership position as of
I
2 years ago?
started in this district last year. This is my 12th year as a special education
So a lot of
director.
the questions and reports and findings were prior to you coming, and you're trying to transition those and work with staff. So I applaud you for such a great report.
Thank you.
It's very in-depth, a lot of good information, but I know there's a lot of work to be done. So nice to have you full-time working on the background and pushing out to the staff and helping the students get to that next level. And it's a benefit for our district that you're doing this hard work. So thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a quick question, and that is, if I understood it right, that Windsor were 4% higher than the state average. Is that correct?
The state average as of last year was 12.4, and that's pretty steady. So I'm going to, worst word, assume that that's what it's about now. We're at 16.5% right now.
Got it.
That's because we've been identified as over-identifying students. So rather than having those pre-interventions in place to see what works for a student before we even consider special education, We've just been moving them towards a special education evaluation. And it's been done with the intent that we want to help students. We want to give them that extra reinforcement. We want to give them the reteaching opportunities. But something to keep in mind is every time we pull a student, even if it's for good intent, every time we even pull them for speech services, we're pulling them out of core content instruction. So that's that we're creating a content. They're missing content that we won't be able to recover for them unless they do additional work outside of the school hours. So to the greatest extent possible, we want to keep those kids in that gen ed environment. We've been over-identifying. We've been placing kids in special education rather than trying to put those pre-intervention pieces in place.
Well, thank you. That was an amazing report, Deborah. I was thinking when you were talking about that solution for every kid to be set up for success was similar to what Stephanie mentioned when we said, look, we have solutions that can develop success for children at the high school level when Forrest was given his celebrating success. I absolutely concur with you. When I got on the board now almost 10 years ago, I wondered why 20% of our general fund was being contributed to special ed. And it was just always that way. And those are great services. It's a reason that we have NCC. And I like that you've helped us sort of deconstruct how we got there and what to do. On the issue, though, of significant disproportionality, great words. I love that.
It's hard
But-
to say. I float it up every time.
How many students do we have in non-public school placements?
Let me go
And it's
back
not,
here. No,
I mean,
okay.
it's not a dozen or 15. It's a very small number.
You
isn't it?
know, part of me coming into the district, and no fault to any of my predecessors, is that I came in as the district was coming out of COVID.
Okay.
So we had some parents that were rightfully frustrated that their students needed more than what could be offered while things were shut down. And so I had to place some students in non-public school. And it also goes back to my need to strengthen how we write IEPs.
Right.
If we don't have a clear picture of what services we're going to provide, if we don't have clear measurable goals that we can give progress updating on, I can't say that we did the right thing. I can't say that
No,
we did.
It's not a criticism, but
No,
the point
no,
I was
no,
going to say,
I'm
it's a
explaining.
handful of students.
Right. So that produces a need for why students were put in there. And we have 15 students right now in non-public schools.
Okay.
The highest number that I saw at one point when I was looking at the last 3 or 4 years was about 25.
Right. And in one of your predecessors, we made some deliberate investments that I can remember
Yes.
to build programs internally
Mhm.
so that those students, it's not that they don't need the services, or that there simply seem to be either a vacuum or insufficient investment or continuity or sustainability of those services. So I think that's a place that I certainly, as one trustee, would support, your investment to pull those students back to us. I know that it is very difficult once parents see that there's, I'll just throw the number, the $40,000 or $50,000 investment. I don't know what that nice school behind the Luther Burbank Center costs, but it was about that much before it burned down and was rebuilt. That I think it's a valuable thing. And I know part of the strategies to not get into litigation discussions here was, look, that might involve some risk. When we set up those similar services, equivalent, adequate services for those students, but that is the district saying they need to come back from a non-public school, that I just wanted you to know that we've had those discussions before.
Right.
And if that is one of the tools that you need to approach us on, maybe offline in closed session or not, I think that's a valuable investment, because I initially looked at when 20% of our budget was going to say, well, how about if we just say, okay, cut that expenditure by 10%. And I learned slowly, but it's not really that simple. It's more involved in that. But I think you are looking at that solution from a number of different avenues. And I really appreciate that, because this is it's a good thing we provide this care for students. I think in some ways you are probably finding we have been providing it in a manner in which we have always been providing it for a long time. And so there's some eggshells that get broken when the status quo is being evaluated and considered. So thank you for your good work on that. I appreciate it. Report.
I will say that coming across the special ed staff here, I can legitimately say in my 12 years as a director, I see some of the strongest service providers I've ever seen. They know what they're doing. They care about kids. My job is just to make sure that we streamline it and we make it as efficient as we can. So.
Well, thank you for the report. I'll echo what Bill said. It was very detailed, had a lot of information. I think Eric said the same thing. And I appreciate the thoroughness of it. I will focus on something that you called out, which I think is going to be the critical piece that we'll probably want to check back in on in October 2023, whoever is sitting up here at that point. And that's kind of those general ed interventions that happen right at the beginning in that process and streamlining that process. It sounds like that's kind of the missing piece or the area where we need a lot of focus. So the strengthening of the IEP writing and I think you said SST process, pre-SPED referral expectations. So if I'm still here, I'll go back to this note in my phone and I'll ask you about it.
Ms. Farrar Sharon is really actively working to get we're doing all the pre-planning and training to implement it. So it is actively being sought after, and there's a lot of the principals are meeting. There's a lot of work going on to make that happen for kids and to build up the knowledge of our teachers and strengthening that. We're not just going to ask them to do it. We're going to support them in doing it.
Yeah, on the 15 MPS students,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't know that, that's okay. I'm sorry. I normally would have reached out earlier,
You're
but
fine.
when Bill asked the question, do you have an idea what the dollar amount that costs our district a year?
I'll give you just a couple examples so you know.
Okay.
We have the kids at SCO is our most expensive placements right now. They went up substantially. They're about $83,000 a piece. That's just base tuition, and then you add any related services and counseling.
So the 3 at SCO are $250,000.
Yes, sir.
We need to.
Rich, when I started as a superintendent 9 years ago, SCO was in the 30,000 range. So
You're giving Harrington that much of a raise?
they've increased a ton, and it's because of a lot of district takebacks. So when districts take back programs, it gets more expensive for SCO to run their programs. And so if we're going to utilize them, this is the cost.
They've closed quite a bit of their classrooms because, I could hire a teacher and an aide for what it costs me to send 2 students.
So
But I got to find the teachers and the aide to hire them.
So SCO is those 3. That's $250,000. That's $250,000 roughly.
Your
And-
15 kiddos are about $45,000 to $60,000 a piece.
So if we average 50. Okey doke. Well,
I know
and the
that-
reason why I wanted to ask that question, sorry, I'll jump in, is to go to Bill's point. We might need to make some strategic investments
Correct.
that it might take a little bit of time to recoup it, but like solar panels and other things, to presume that there's a payback on those.
Yeah.
That was a joke for my friends
I
at
laughed.
home laughing.
I laughed.
They're watching. Anyhow, there's a lot of, we're spending a lot of money that we might be able to recoup in-house
So
and
to-
maybe even doing a better
To put
job.
it in perspective, let's take one of those students out. So if they have what we call a low incident disability, we get about 20,000, just under 20,000, but it still doesn't cover the cost. If they don't have a low incident disability, such as other health impaired or specific learning disability, we get no base funding for them, and 100% of their tuition comes out of our district unrestricted funds. So it's worth it for us to invest in quality staff, and it'll hurt for a minute. But I could almost, for some of those kids, it would be less expensive to have one teacher for 2 students. So that just kind of puts it in perspective. The funding mechanism right now doesn't help us. I know there's some talk about making special ed 100% funded. It's never happened in the 22 years I've been in education. It's never happened. So we can do this better. There are some kids that legitimately need an outside placement. We're seeing tons of just and a higher level of behaviors for some kids, the younger kids that, didn't have that exposure during COVID to social environments. But we're also building the skill of our staff to be able to address it. So we've added behaviorists, they're doing trainings. So we're building those blocks. It's just going to take a minute.
Thanks.
I'll just make a quick mention that it's been years ago. I can't tell you the exact year, but we did have a student on a non-public school placement, and there were no programs available anywhere near us.
Right.
That student was sent to, I think, Kansas or Kentucky, something like that. It was like $400,000 for that single year of school because nothing was available. That's what the parents requested. We could not deny that. It was a student that was new to our district even. It hadn't been here very long, but you're going to get those hits once in a while, and we need to build those programs, like you said. And it's not a hit, it's an education for that student. And if it was my student, I'd want it as well. But it's really a tough situation when all of a sudden you come up and there's nearly $500,000 for one child when we get $11,000 for that child.
Well,
It's
and
tough.
I also believe it's important that we do talk about funding because I think that the perception out there is there's this unending budget. But anytime we have to use unrestricted funds from our district, it takes away from all of our students. It takes away from, compensating teachers. It takes away from updating our facilities. So I think that's kind of why I put the budget in there is I don't think it's understood that we do not have an unlimited fund. So that was a great example, Eric.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you can, I'm going to go out to public comment real quick. And is there anybody in the public that would like to address anything about this issue? Seeing none, we'll bring it back. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Beverly.
All right, everybody, we're good. All righty, we're going to jump to 5.2, Windsor Unified School District Independent Studies Program Report, information on the district's long-term independent study program from grades TK to 12, presented by Sharon Farrar.
Ferrer.
What'd I say?
Farrar.
I was just making sure you're paying attention.
Okay, this is going to be a very brief presentation.
That does not cost me $50. I just want to be clear.
Ferrer. A lot of people call me Farrar, but it's Ferrer. So this will be a very brief presentation on the independent study program that's developing and continuing to develop at Windsor Unified School District. Began really during COVID because we had to offer independent study options for all students. And we've had some really good success with it and are continuing it and building and expanding it. So currently we have two main pathways for independent study. And I'm talking to you about long-term independent study, meaning these are students that only are doing independent study. They're not in school at this point and taking some classes on the side. They're 100% at home doing their work on our platform called Ingenuity. So right now, TK through 5th grade, we have 3 students that are full-time. 6th through 8th grade, we have 7 students that are full-time. And their teacher is Catherine Mirabali, who is also overseeing the entire full-time independent study program. And then 9th through 12th grade, we have 52 students who are full-time independent study students. And the current teachers are Nadine McCoy, Lauren Turner, and Adam White. We will most likely have to add more, and that's okay. It's a good thing. But that's what that's looking like for the full-time students. Ingenuity is the program that delivers the curriculum. It provides, the program provides a variety of options for the students. They can do recovery credits that are just graduation based, or they can do A through G credits, which are the credits or the classes that they need to take in order to be UC-CSU ready. They can also take advanced placement classes. There's a ton of electives, so there's a lot of different opportunities for students. They also, for English learners, they can have English language development support with a Windsor Unified School District teacher, and they also have access to bilingual tutors through the program. The full-time independent study high school students can also take advantage of dual enrollment at the JC, so they can be doing both at the same time and getting even more credits. And students with IEPs and 504s can also be enrolled in the program. They do have to go through the IEP process to make sure that they have the proper supports in place. But so far, we've been able to accommodate everybody that's wanted to go in. Okay, so this is what the part-time independent study program looks like at Windsor High School. So what you just saw was the full-time program that's overseen by Catherine Meterbali. And then on-site at the high school, there's sort of, I guess I would call it I don't know the word, a myriad of options that students can have, which allows for flexibility, and it allows for credit makeup, as well as allowing students to kind of create their own educational experience while maintaining their presence on the high school. So the first option you can see, and it's all through the Edgenuity platform, which is the online platform. There are credit makeup classes in the Learning Center, and those are specifically for students with an active IEP. So that means they're on campus, they're full-time at the high school, and then during their Learning Center class, they can take credit makeup through Edgenuity. And then the teachers that support them are listed there. There's also an option for students to do A through G validation class makeup. So that's different than students having to or wanting to repeat a class that they failed for graduation purposes. Like they need those credits to move on and to be able to graduate. The A through G courses are above and beyond. Some are inclusive of graduation courses, but many of them are above and beyond. So students have to get a C or above in those classes in order to be able to have them count towards their UC or CSU eligibility or four-year university eligibility. So if a student took a class, an A through G class, and got a D, it does not count for four-year eligibility. So through Edgenuity, they can retake that class, even though they would still get the credits for that class for graduation. So, but they have to retake it in order to be eligible for four-year university. So that's a brand new thing that they're doing within the day on the high school that they've never done before. So those are called A through G validation class makeups. The next option is English Language Learner Core. There are 15 students currently that are considered ELLs, that are ELLs 1 and 2, meaning that they have the highest need of language support. And they are doing a few of their courses through this Edgenuity platform while they are getting support from a teacher and an aide within the classroom, as well as having access to the online bilingual tutors. It's the first time we've done this with them as well, so it'll be interesting to see how well they do. I'm hoping and pretty positive that they'll do well. Then we have 2 cores at the high school that are actually embedding some of the independent study program within the core. The first one is the Career Explorer Core that has 24 students in it right now. And all of the students in that core have to take Career Exploration 1 and 2 in order to get English makeup credits. The students in that core are typically students that are in danger of not graduating on time. So they're able to have another means to make up credits and get back on track and graduate with their class. The next core is the hybrid core. And in order to be in the hybrid core, you have to have a C average, no credit deficiencies, and you agree that your core classes, which are English, econ and government, I'm sorry, are done through Ingenuity. And you can do that at home or at school if you want. And then the rest of your classes you take on the high school campus. So there's 19 students there. And then finally, credit makeup, non-A through G. So this is credit makeup for graduation purposes. And you can see there are 83 students in there right now, which is a large number. But it's also nice to have the option to be able to make up credits while you're still in school. So all in all, you can see there's a lot of students enrolled in this program. There will be more. There's going to be students coming in and out, right? So at the end of semester 1, you'll have some more students that probably want to come in because they get D's or F's, and you'll have students coming out because they've made up the credits that they need. So I think it's an amazing program that we have. This part of the program, the part-time independent study, is run by the high school. And that was per the decision of the admin team there. They preferred to run it themselves. And I think that was a really good call because they were able to come up with all these different ways to help the students. That is it.
If I could, I'll start a little discussions here. So there are 200 odd students. I didn't do the math, but I'm guessing. How are they learning about this? How are they given outreach? Is it a 10-minute counseling meeting? Is it a recommendation by a teacher? Is it they just need to find their own way? How do we let these kids know of all these options?
Well, the hybrid and the career core, that's published for the kids when they select their core. The credit makeup and the A through G validation, that's through their counselors who meet with them. I wouldn't say they're meeting with every single student individually, but they're definitely telling them through letters and such that, you have to make this up in order to graduate. Here are your opportunities. And then the ELL and the credit makeup for Learning Center, that's just embedded in their class. So they don't have an option. They have to take those. And we have made a really nice flyer, but that's for the full-time one. So it's not for the part-time one.
I've been working with a student, actually a couple different ones. I really like the Edgenuity platform. I mean, it was something when I looked at it, I was going, this is really good. Anybody in education knows that kids learn different ways.
Yep.
And I like the fact that we are between our just normal go to school, North Bay Met, the independent study, we are getting our basket full, and really there isn't a kid that is walking around that we don't have. That's what I love about Windsor. I mean, I've been bragging about our school district for years, is it doesn't matter what you are, where you are, what you're thinking, whether you're a 50 watt or a 500 watt bulb, doesn't matter. We have a program where you can excel and be as good as you can be. And there's a lot of things about, I would have taken some independent study classes when I was in school because I was involved in a lot of extracurricular stuff and different things. We had to go to seminary early in the morning, like really early, feeding animals, all these different things. There's a class or two I would have much rather have just taken independent study-wise and would have freed up time when I'm traveling to gymnastics or dance or whatever, that we could have been doing some classes. And so I like that flexibility. I really hope that we as a district really focus on, I don't know if it's advertising or whatever, but I think we could become a very much of an independent study type program hub. When my office about 10 years ago was over downtown Windsor, right across from the Taco Bell area. Not that matters, although they have lost a lot of money. There was a company down on the first floor of the building that did an independent study type thing. And I was talking to them, and they had kids from LA. They were kind of a company that kind of focused more on students that were in movies and different things in the arts. And so they had kids in Los Angeles, Georgia, all over that they came in. And that's where I kind of was talking to folks and I'm thinking that was my first introduction to it, kind of saying, what a great idea. And I'm thinking like, why doesn't Windsor do this type of thing? And so even 10, 12 years ago, the thought, it just kind of like a light bulb. I mean, of course this makes sense. Obviously with COVID, we also discovered that independent study is not for everybody either. And that, there are some drawbacks and stuff. So, but anyhow, I think that we as a district could and should continue to craft and develop this independent study program to be a major prong of how we work with kids that are full-time independent, part-time, hybrid. However, I like the fact that we have various levels of participation in and out of that program. And I appreciate everybody that's putting time and effort into it. I just think it's an untapped, really good program. And the thing I like about it is it now provides opportunities for kids that live in Willits, here, there, or whatever. Maybe they live an hour to 2 hours away from here, and they can actually be part of our district. They can be in part of any of our extracurricular activities. Even the kids with, IEPs and other things that you mentioned below, they got to go through that process. But it has something for everybody. And it's not, you're not just sitting there and you're watching your iPad or whatever. I mean, it's good stuff. And so anyhow, for the students who need it or the students who want it, I'm glad that we're offering it. And I hope that we continue to figure out how to advertise it more and let a lot more people know that it's available. Because there's a lot of kids that actually flourish in this type of a system that otherwise in other districts that don't offer it, they just are kind of going through and barely hoping they get through on their fingernails hanging on and whatever. And that's not good because they get out of the school with a low self-esteem. They're not feeling very confident. Whereas this is a confidence booster of, hey, I can learn this way and I'm doing really well. So thank you to everybody who's investing in this. I hope that we continue to and in a bigger way.
Yeah, and we have discussed that, or well, Jeremy at least has with us about growing the program significantly. Currently, we have about 5 interdistrict transfers for the full-time program, so we'd like to grow that as well. But this is the first year we're doing this, so we have a lot of things in place, and I think next steps are growing and outreach and trying to get more kids.
And just so you know, we have some more restrictions that some privates do not. So public school districts, we can only have students enroll in our independent study program from contiguous counties. Luckily for Sonoma County, we have a number of those, meaning Lake, Mendocino, Solano, Napa, Marin. So we have a number of counties who are contiguous with us that we could have students enroll. So we've discussed it. We've been doing a lot of things, and this is definitely one of those things that we plan to take on. I think we'll probably do quite a bit of planning in the spring to see what our next steps are.
Did you say that's a state rule, federal rule, or?
It's for public
Or
school
just
districts.
county?
Yeah, I'm not sure where the rule is. I just know it's the rule. So I would imagine it's an education code, but I'm not sure where it is.
Got it. So anybody contiguous?
Yep.
Got it.
Sharon, thank you very much. I was reflecting on Director Ryan's report of no cookie cutter approach, or that, we've sort of had that. I like that we have agility and flexibility in our programs to be kind of the devil's advocate on it. I get concerned sometimes that concurrently with that, we need to make sure we have an identification of the high school experience, because much of what you were talking about, and a significant part, of course, because with the number of students, that there's some continuity or interconnectedness amongst the high school experience. I, for one, have thought that we need to really dump the core system out, put it on the table, and really validate that we have the right ones of the right sort. What does it mean when somebody's in a core? Are they too siloed or not? I don't know. I like that the theme today seems to have been, look, we're going to craft opportunities for success for everybody. So when you talked about maybe hiring more teachers or growing the program, perhaps think about coming back, well, what does that mean for deliberate strategic investment from us of how we do that on purpose, because I do think, tremendous things happen at the high school. I think philosophically, kind of coupled when we get to facilities master plan, is what's our pedagogical makeup in the strategic plan of that. And I know Jeremy's had a number of conversations with us about that and has shared some of that that's not really out in the street yet. So just as a thought, because if we need to adjust policies or our expectations or come up to speed when you guys are clearly going fast on stuff, that's great. But we need to be in sync so that, if we need to make reinvestments, what those are and the time frame and how we do that. And also with the staff. I mean, there's, when some of the things that are happening are very novel, some of the things that, Director Ryan was talking about from special ed, is some changes in status quo. So I like that, every student, every family has that great opportunity. That is sometimes a dramatic paradigm shift for some staff who worked here for a long time. So I want to just, mention that, because to be cognizant that that's another piece that we need to work in. So not a voice of caution, just to say, I know those are going on. I think sometimes perceptions are that maybe solutions and agility are being put in place, and how we get our staff to come on board or understand that, well, this is the way we're going. And so, if you're not, part of this or embracing this, then be aware of that too. So just wanted to share that, because I think this is very exciting. And we've heard a number of areas between Forrest is starting and Deborah and now you on, look, we're doing things innovatively and cultivating that success. And ideally we can get out of here by 8:15, an hour and 15 minutes after the president promised to see the last two sets of the Cardinal Newman defeat. So I'll just say it out loud.
Well, I'll keep the discussion going. I'll take the blame, Bill. That's okay. So I look to the right of this chart that we're seeing on our screens, and there are, a lot of 10 different teachers on that list. So are these teachers giving up a period class? Are they doing this in excess of their current contract? What are the FTE full-time equivalents?
Little bit of
That
everything.
may be 2 full-time people or 3
little bit of
full-time
everything.
people.
Some of them.
Just curious what the payout would be in
Right.
the long run.
So some of them are taking on an extra section before school or just whenever, because they can do it online. And then the other ones, the hybrid core, the career explorer core, the English language learner core, and the special education students that are doing it through Learning Center, all of those teachers, it's part of their assignment, their 1.0 FT assignment. And so the A through G validation class makeup and the credit makeup is all extra. And so we have teachers that are taking on those students one class at a time.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping to hear. I appreciate that that's happening. I don't know if that is an ask of the staff who would like to, or if it's a seniority issue. I'm sure WDA is working that out. But
So far we've
great
had,
that there's a lot of experts there. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with a lot of those names, and I'm proud that they're doing that and have chosen to step up and do something new. I don't know that I would be on that list if it was in my district. So it's a brave investment to try something different.
so far we've had a lot of support from the staff, and through my kind of interviewing the teachers that are doing the full-time independent study support, they're enjoying it. I mean, and it's, and it's outside of their subject area many of times, but they are really enjoying it.
Well, there's not much more I can add after that robust discussion. But I appreciate the flexibility. I mean, this is a new area, right? We're just
Mhm.
coming out of COVID. We identified the need. And I think it's interesting. I think kind of we maybe initially thought we'd see more long-term independent study students. There's I think it's still a pretty small number. I mean, in 9th through 12th grade it's higher, but at the younger grade levels, it's still a pretty small number. So that's interesting. I like that we have so many flexible options at the high school.
I do too.
Like, I think it's just, we have to serve our students in the best way possible at the end of the day. And I think that's what we're trying to do. And so it'll be interesting to see where this goes, because we have great people working on it. So to see kind of where it goes in the future, I think the only like flag in my mind is it's now so easy to do these credit recovery courses. I hope we don't lose sight of kind of that. I know we were talking about like making sure that we're really like I think that kind of goes to multi-tiered systems of support and identifying when students are struggling initially
Mhm.
so that they're not even having to go into credit recovery.
Right.
So kind of that piece of like, how are we supporting them still at the very beginning and using this really as a more of a last resort
Mhm.
for that particular area. But that's all I will add. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And I'd like to open up to the public. If anybody likes something, like to come up and say anything about this topic, that'd be great. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to our group. We'll go to 6.1, future school board item, agenda items.
This is my
Stephanie?
favorite item,
Okay.
parking lot.
Parking lot.
Because I
here we
like to
go.
check in. Hold on, I have my notes that I need to pull up.
I got one.
Okay, so at our last meeting, we talked about going off-site and scheduling opportunities for board members or the leadership team, I guess, to go off-site. I think I saw some calendar invites go out. Like we were talking about once a quarter that we would all go to a school site or like once every couple months, maybe.
I don't think we calendared anything.
We haven't calendared anything yet.
We haven't done that yet.
So where are we in terms of like getting something on the calendar?
Should just be trying to coordinate with you guys and finding a date that it works.
Okay, I thought we were gonna do it where it was you kind of just had the ability to set it and then whoever could make it would make it.
Oh, okay. That I didn't understand it that way.
Fine
So
with that?
Just maybe I'm getting confused, but I thought you said that we were going to set something up and then we were going to do a tour of the kitchen facilities at each school site.
Well, I think we ended up
Or was that just
having
the way
the
to try
food
and entice us?
services.
Bill just wants lunch.
The food services director came to us
Right.
and brought us food. So I don't think we're going off-site to do that anymore, right?
I had my intention was for us to schedule a time and visit multiple school sites on that day because I know I would prefer to have all of you present versus just a couple be able to show up. So I was hoping to schedule a large chunk of the day where we have agendized at Maddie Washburn from this time to this time, at Brooks from this time to this time, and we're traveling
Mhm.
and they're prepared to have us there. But if
And-
you don't want that, then we could do something else.
Well, maybe we can have a discussion as a board at a time that's appropriate, but I think I was thinking that it would just be on the calendar that it's kind of expected that like maybe once a month or once every 2 months, we do something and it could be for an hour, it could be for 2 hours, just so that it's always kind of a standing thing and we rotate through the school sites.
Okay.
It might be harder to do a full day or a half day, given everyone's schedules. So I don't know, that's kind of where we have to figure it out, because if we're trying to schedule, that's going to take a lot longer to do. We'll go fewer times. But if we have it kind of be more standing, then we can just invite people and whoever can make it, probably be a few people who would be able to make it for each one. So I think I would just like to see it happen, but I know it's going to take a little bit for us to figure out how to work that in.
Okay. Jen and I will talk about this and figure out the best way to do the planning.
And then my other note was we had talked about recognition
Mhm.
and kind of systematically recognizing staff, recognizing donors, and I just wanted to follow up and raise that one more time to make sure that we're still thinking about
We are.
how to systematize that. Okay.
With that, what I'd like to do on the recognition part, I'd like to actually establish some things that we will regularly recognize. The reason why is because, it's when performance is measured or recognized, performance always improves. I mean, when I was a freshman, I wanted my name on the top of that little wrestling thing at school. And the only way that was going to happen was our really, really good guy decided to not want to be at school the day that he had to wrestle the really, really, really good guy from Santa Rosa. And I told Mr. Elder, I said, hey, you know what? If I get my varsity stuff, I'll go out and get my butt kicked by that guy. And he said, well, okay. He goes, but you can't get pinned. And I said, okay. And so I was really motivated and I did some things that I otherwise wouldn't normally do because I wanted some certain things. So I think with our employees and what have you and other folks, some people, they will run through fire for certain recognition. Some people are motivated that way, but it's nice to recognize folks for doing a great job anyway.
Mhm.
And so what I'd like to do is maybe there's some things that we just might want to identify as a board and get feedback from all of our partners. What are the things that, we all know there are people out there that are our partners that are doing things that really make a difference that they never get recognized for, and they don't do it for recognition, but it's nice to recognize them anyway. And so I'd like to kind of maybe go through and, I'm sure teachers see somebody who's just always doing just an awesome job. I'm just going to bring it up right now. And it's probably a bad time or a good time. I don't know if there's ever a good time. Wendy Katz is an example. Okay, Wendy was one of our fourth grade teachers at Brooks Elementary School. She just passed away this last week. She just retired a few years ago. My wife and her are really, really good friends. She taught every one of my kids that went through we made sure Wendy Katz had every one of our kids going through school, and my kids loved her, and she did a great job. And there's hundreds and hundreds of kids that love Wendy Katz, and she was just a happy person doing her thing. And there's just we have a lot of great people in our district, and it'd be good if we could just give a little bit more love to those folks when they're here working and doing their great jobs for all our kids. So anyhow, to your point, Tuffy, I mean, I think the recognition thing is something that we need to do a better job at. So with that, I have one thing on the future agenda, and it's parking lot. So I want to wait till after the election. But once the election's over, I want our board and whoever's on it to go and get with our town council and who was ever on it. And I want to just figure out what the barriers are to us getting high-speed internet to every home in Windsor. We had COVID. We found out our kids are using tablets. A lot of kids don't have access
They had to buy all
to
those
it.
spots. Yeah.
And so I was curious. So just really quickly, I brought a company over to my commercial property on Charlie Road, and I asked them about, putting some stuff in and getting the high speed there. And they told me, they go, "Oh, we're so glad you're not in Windsor. You're in the county." And I said, "Well, no, I'm actually in Windsor." And they're going, "Oh, man." They said Windsor was really super hard. So we've been bringing it up to the folks at Windsor too to work on it. But I asked them, I said, because I know that company went and wired all of Sebastopol. And Sebastopol, they don't like anything. And so yet, how were they able to do it? And they just said there were some things that were in place in Sebastopol that the town council fixed, and they were able to go and do that. And I said, well, I would like our district to work with our town to fix whatever those hurdles are. So that way we can get that. The companies want to, all of the communication companies that I talked to all want to bring fiber in to Windsor. But they just said it's very, very difficult. It's expensive, but it wasn't the expensive part. It was the difficulty part. And so I don't know what all those things are, but they said they would be all three companies. I talked to them. They said they would be happy to meet with the town, our school, and make sure that they can not only bring fiber everywhere, but they will put hotspots up all around the town too. So that way kids, can get access to high-speed internet. So that way, if kids want to do independent study or whatever, when they're at home doing their homework, that thing that Forrest showed that kid made on that's crazy so good. I know you can't do that with dial-up. I'm pretty sure. So anyhow, that would be my parking lot. That I don't want to be in a parking lot very long. I'd like, one of the things, if you can talk to John, and maybe, if the other members would like to do that too, but maybe our next joint meeting, even before that, we can do a lot of the homework and figure out what we can do. Maybe we have a couple people from the school board, a couple people from the town council, get together with those companies and figure out what is the problem, why we can't do that. And, but that would be a thing that would help the quality of life for every kid and every person in our town if we could get that. Because, the best internet in Windsor still is not great. And when a lot of people jump on it, it slows down fast. So that would be something that I think would really, really be good. And I think actually it might be one single topic that everybody in this town could agree on. So anyhow, trying to bring us all together, Bill. Thank you.
Do Do you have anything, Bill? I have a couple more things that I remembered.
You keep going, Stephanie.
Okay, so I should have said this in the board report section because I forgot, but I totally forgot. We had our 20-plus year reunion this past weekend. So class of 99, 2000, 2001, and 2002. It was very fun. We came to a football game at Windsor High School on Friday night and went on a tour together. And we had our party at La Rosa / the Cantina on Saturday night. And there is some interest from our kind of older graduates in starting some kind of alumni association. And it looks like it might just be driven by alumni. So there's interest in donating, there's interest in like donating time, coming and speaking at career presentations. So I want to help direct that energy in the right direction. So I'll raise it here. I've kind of talked to Brian Williams a little bit about it too, but I think it could go beyond him. You know, it could go beyond the high school. So just flagging that. And then the other thing that a parent raised this to me, apparently a few years ago, I think this is before Sharon, even your time being principal at Cali, there was some discussion about potentially taking the AP Spanish exam at the end of 8th grade rather than even taking the first year of Spanish at the high school or taking AP Spanish and then taking the exam, kind of a culminating AP exam. So a parent had asked me if anyone had investigated that, whether it's possible to do, what the implications would be if it were offered. And I figured I would just raise it now to follow up.
Yes, please.
Do you know the answer?
I partially know the answer. So we did look into it. There are some difficulties because of facilities. Well, actually, that might be different now that we're a one-to-one district. So that may have been solved. But you do have to send your teachers to specific trainings, buy new curriculum, and preferably have someone well-versed giving the class. So we did look into it, and then the two people we were kind of prepping to do it both left the school. So one is back, so I could definitely put a bug in Patricia Chadwick's ear and see if that could happen. I think it's a great idea. My children graduated from Cali and they both got 5s on the AP language test, no problem. And I think they could have gotten it at the end of 8th grade.
Did they take the test freshman year?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I think I've not having children who didn't go to Cali. Sadly, I think the biliteracy erodes while folks are in high school without, a deliberate intent to immerse themselves or take other classes at the JC. So
Right.
immediately would be good. I was just thinking perhaps a concurrent enrollment in a JC class at the same time, if that's something that helped, or let's find out how we can do that.
We can explore that one more time. I think
Yeah.
that'd be really helpful because then it frees up an elective for those 9th graders.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I had one comment for adjournment then. It's good closer stuff. In one I was going to do anyway, but in adjournment, I would offer up to the board, not only did we adjourn in teacher Wendy Katz's name, who passed away, but also we had a preschooler, Isabella Medina, whose family has put her name out there, died of a injury, suffered at home, very, very sad, was a preschooler at Maddie Washburn. So I would offer up a motion to the board that we adjourn in Wendy Katz and Isabella Medina's names.
Second that motion. All
Thank
those in
you.
favor?
I favor adjournment, yes.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Bill.
We're actually adjourning back to closed session. Right? No?
We chose not to.
Oh, we did. We're not doing that. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Yeah, we're still in the second game.
What's the score?
I don't know. We won the first game.
Windsor won the first game against Cardinal Newman.